Good morning. Welcome to the Council of the Whole for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd also like to mention that Councillor Silovitz sends her regrets for today. And I'd like to start with if there's any council announcements. Looks like Mayor West.
Thank you very much. And I would like just to start off by saying Shana Tova to all of our Jewish residents in Richmond Hill as we with the upcoming Rosh Hashanah, and in particular, Councillor Silovitz, who's not here today. I wish her a Shana Tova as well. I'd like to also just mention that we had a number of events that have happened in Richmond Hill in the last little while around the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I want to thank everybody that came out. Many of our staff came out to the flag raising that we had. I think it was last Wednesday. And that was really great to see. We heard from Jay Shea from Odeowin, and we had the honor of having Councillor Farrell from the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation come and join us as well, which was great. We also had a really interesting and thought-provoking, to say the least, get-together at the Lake Wilcox Park. Councillor Davidson and I were there, and it's really the hard truths that we have to listen to and understand and make an understanding of our own before reconciliation can happen. But I think the people that I've spoken to in our community are willing to do that, and I think it's not just on that day that we need to think about what we can do to be allies with Indigenous people in Canada, but we certainly marked that day well, and I'm pleased that we did so. So thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Excuse me. I was going to say the same thing about Monday's Truth and Reconciliation at Oak Ridge's Community Center. We had a fire, and it was just conversation, and it was enlightening and intimate, and really it will stick with me. And I would encourage others to come next year if we have it there, because it was really meaningful. I also want to say I have my very first councillor-led event on Sunday at 1 o'clock till 3, and it's concert and bring your e-waste. And there's a bike valet, which means you can ride your bike and it'll be well taken care of. So I hope to see some folks at my event this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tree.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. So last week there was a Mackenzie House Foundation writing fundraising event. So through that writing events, the house system collected around $300,000. So thank you so much for your generosity and donors. So the writing is around 40, 70, and 100 kilometers. Hope maybe next year more people join this writing if you like. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor announcements? I do have an announcement myself. On Saturday, October the 5th, I'll be hosting my Eco Family Fest over at Elgin Barrow and Town Park. Please come on out. This will be a free event for the family. We'll have a free barbecue. This will be an opportunity to see what innovative products and so forth are available that will help us all make a much more, a better future and a sustainable future. So do come on out and enjoy the free barbecue at the same time. Okay, without any further council announcements, I'd like to see if there's any introduction of emergency or time-sensitive matters. Seeing none. I'd like to go to the adoption of the agenda. Who would like to move the motion? Councillor Tree, you'd like to speak to the motion?
I can move it, so go ahead.
Okay, moving. Okay. Okay, any disclosure of, so the adoption of the agenda, sorry. Yes, sorry. Motion to accept the adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Okay. Disclosure of pecuniary interests or general nature thereof. Seeing none. Okay, now I'd like to turn it to identification of items requiring separate discussion. So I believe at the moment we have, just have to remind me which ones we are going to be speaking about. Where'd my sheet go here? Sorry.
11.2.
Yeah. That's right. So we have 11.2 as a delegation, which is the completion of the comprehensive official plan. And then we have a member motion 12.1. And I think the 11.7 addition could be adopted on consent. Is that correct? Okay. Any items that anybody would like to pull? Okay, Councillor Hsu.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to pull out 11.1 and 3 as separate discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, 11.1, 11.3, Councillor Tree.
I would like to extract 11.6 for this animal source. Yeah, 11.6. Thank you.
And 11.6. Anyone else? Going once, twice? Okay, given the items for separate discussion, that would leave the following items that could be adopted on consent. Items 11.4, 11.5, and 11.7 to receive the correspondence. Moved by Councillor West. All those in favor? Sorry, Mayor. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Mayor West, thank you for moving the motion. Okay, public hearings. I don't believe we have any. Presentations. I don't believe we have any. So we do have two delegations that we're going to hear from this morning. One is Vincent Ching of Leslie Street on behalf of the York Region Standard Condominium Corporation 972 and 1008 in regards to item 11.2. Welcome, Vincent. If you'd like to take the podium, you have 5 minutes.
Yes, good morning, Mayor, Councillor Thompson. I have sent in my submission this morning. I wonder if the council have received it, and I have a few hard copies available. I sent into the clerk's office a couple of days ago. Have you got it? Oh, the council would, yeah, because basically my presentation is a brief summary of what is in the actual submission. Good morning, Mayor, councillors. I'm Vincent Cheng, one of the board member of the York Region Condominium Board Corporation next door. Our corporations represent about 1,500 residents in the condominium buildings. That's 9015 and 9017 Leslie Street, neighboring the Parkway Hotels. We are located within the East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 local center. We fully support the recommendation in the staff report 24.078 to complete the official plan update in East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 area, and to prepare a comprehensive secondary plan for the area. We believe that these are necessary steps and legal steps that the city must undertake before it can consider any development proposal that does not meet the official plan, current official plan policies. As a stakeholder, we would like to be actively involved in the consultation and public engagement process when the official plan update and secondary plan for the area is being developed. Just to give you a background, Parkway Hotel submitted a development application to build 29 to 55-story towers on the current site of 5.05 hectare, where the Sheraton Hotel, the Parkway Mall, and the Health Club will remain standing. So the proposed development height, 55 stories, and the density, 6.7 FSI. It's about the height and density of the city center. Like the city center, if I read the official plan, it has a height, average height of 40 story and 6.5 SSI, which means the Richmond Hill, I want to ask the council, does Richmond Hill want to build another city center on the site next door? It really violates all these provisions as stated, all these regulations as stated in the official plan and the city structure and all the city structure and vision as stated in the current official plan. So we feel very strongly that it is necessary and needed for the council to approve this study as recommended by the planning department to undertake this official plan update before we can really look at this particular application. Our corporations support planned growth and development in the area. We raise objections of the Parkway proposal because it does not meet the official plan policies in effect. And the proposed height and density is not supported by transportation and infrastructure capacity. The top concern of the residents is a traffic gridlock on Highway 7 as a result of this development and other already existing development along Highway 7 and future development along Highway 7 between Bayview and McCowan. This proposed development by Parkway will add 111 hotel suites and 3,796 units, condo units to the site. And it will introduce potentially 12,000 new residents and 5,000 vehicles to this area. The corporation will advise by York Region Transportation that, quote, the intersection of Highway 7 and Leslie Street, Highway 7 and the Highway 404 ramp terminals in this area are constructed to their ultimate configurations, and there are no plans for expansion, unquote. So this is from York Region Transportation.
Mr. Ching, we've actually run time, but if you wanted to wrap up, our bell's not working.
Okay. We conducted actually, Councillor Shiu hosted a residents meeting in March, and it was attended by yourself and Councillor Shiu, as well as Councillor Liu and the mayor and deputy mayor. So it was, so you heard directly from the residents what our concerns are. And we capture all these concerns in the report, which is attached to my submission this morning.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
I'm not going to go over that.
Right.
And we would, again, I reiterate that we, the corporation, would
Mr.
like
Ching,
to be
we're
involved.
well over time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you very much for joining us today. Now I'd like to call on Lauren Capilongo. I hope I said that correctly. Representing Malone Given Parsons on behalf of Parkway Hotels and Convention Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the floor
Good
is
morning,
yours.
members of the committee. My name is Lauren Capolongo. I'm a planner and principal with the firm Malone Given Parsons, and I'm here this morning on behalf of Sheridan Parkway Hotels and Convention Center to speak to you with respect to item 11.2, which is a staff report requesting direction on the updated official plan and secondary plan approach. The staff report seeks council's direction to proceed with the secondary plan for the East Beaver Creek area, which will include the Sheridan Parkway Hotel lands. After reviewing the staff report, I understand that the secondary plan is targeted to commence in the fall of 2026 and not be completed until the spring of 2028. I'm here this morning to request that council exclude the Sheridan Parkway Hotel lands from the East Beaver Creek secondary plan and instead allow the application for the official plan amendment to be considered a tertiary planning or a concept planning exercise, which can be used as input into the city's official plan process. The basis for my request is simple. The initiation of the secondary plan is a long way off. An official plan amendment application was submitted in March 2023 by Sheridan and can effectively examine all of the same elements as a secondary plan, but on a smaller and more focused area being the Sheridan Parkway lands. There's several reasons why I believe it's appropriate. And I just want to tell this story. But 4 years ago, I remember walking into a meeting with regional staff with the city's former policy director, both of us in lockstep, to ask the region to convert the Sheridan lands. There was city support as well as endorsement from Richmond Hill Council to establish the Sheridan lands as an area of change, to deliver on Sheridan's vision for a high-rise mixed-use community anchored by an expanded hotel and convention center space. This is a vision that Sheridan has shared with this committee, this council, since its new official plan was adopted in 2010. That was 18 years ago. And so in October 2020, together with Richmond Hill and Sheridan, we were successful in having the region to approve the employment land conversion for the lands. However, while we were in lockstep with city staff 4 years ago, the lands have since been converted and we have done little to advance a new policy framework for these lands. The first time that we heard about a secondary plan being initiated to proceed for this area was when we met with staff this past summer. That was 4 years after the lands were converted from employment and 18 months after we filed our development application. We didn't receive any written comments telling us that this was going to be the process. Instead, our application was processed and subject to community consultation. You know, we had a residents meeting, we had a statutory public meeting, including we met with Councillor Hsu and the residents, right? So, but over the last 18 months, we have requested meetings with staff in an attempt to work through the comments and refine the concept plan. However, the number of times we've actually met and have substantive comments and discussions have been very few. All of this I would describe as a catalyst for development to create one of the largest suburban hotel and convention centers in the 905 area. If the Sheridan lands are caught up in the secondary plan process, it will mean that from the time the conversion was approved by York Region to the completion of the city's secondary plans, 8 years would have passed. 8 years, that's a very long time to have no updated policy framework in place to guide this development of these lands. It will be 18 years since the city have effectively reviewed the policy framework for the Sheridan lands. The last time it was done was in 2010. There's been a lot of media attention in the recent years highlighting the extraordinary length of time it's taken to get through the development approvals process. Waiting 8 years with no updated planning policy framework is just one such example. And the policy framework is just the beginning. Once we have that in place, we'll have to file a zoning bylaw application, site plan application, and potentially many more applications, which will take anywhere from an additional 2 to 5 years until there's even one shovel in the ground. If the Sheridan lands are caught up in the secondary process, it will delay the approval process, push out the timeline to deliver the new expanded hotel, the convention center, and this mixed-use community with residential units that the province is in desperate need of. The very reason Sheridan filed the application for official plan amendment in March 2023 was to expedite and establish a site-specific framework for the lands and avoid the lengthy delays. As part of the application, we've proposed a policy framework along with a concept plan, which effectively forms the basis of a tertiary or conceptual planning exercise. My point is that a secondary plan is not the only way forward here. We can plan comprehensively for the lands. The same result can be achieved through a tertiary or planning concept exercise that's contemplated as part of the application filed by Sheridan. City has done this many times. You have terms of reference in your official plan, which essentially would allow us to study the same elements on a much more smaller scale. And so for all of these reasons, we're asking council exclude the Sheridan lands from the secondary plan and instead allow the applications for the official plan amendment to be considered a tertiary plan or concept planning exercise, which will be used as input to the city's secondary plan. I believe this is an appropriate way forward to ensure that the lands are not unduly delayed to deliver the exciting opportunity for the city and the additional housing that we need. If I could just say one more thing we wanted to add, Sheridan is not like any other developer here. They are not the type of person who is looking to get their approvals billed and hightail it out of the city. They've been a figure in the city since 1970, and they're not going anywhere. We want to find a way to get these approvals done quicker than the 8 years for policy and framework and another 2.5 years before shovels in the ground. Thank you for your consideration this morning.
Thank you very much for bringing that to us today. At this point, I'd like to turn this over to council to who would like to move the motion for 11.2. Councillor Hsu, okay, you want to speak to that? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to support this staff report, and thank you to the neighbors living near East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 for expressing your opinions on the updated OPA in the chambers this morning. And I also appreciate the information on the staff report, which indicates that the proposed height and density for the KDA by the applicant were not contemplated for this area before initiating any regional mixed-use corridor and secondary plan 2 years later. And this is a valid observation and fair comment from the planning staff, and I appreciate that your input. And I fully understand that the remaining components of the official plan update will focus on addressing provincial conformity requirements and consolidating York Region's OP into city's OP policies. To meet the housing targets set by the provincial government, it is necessary to reveal and update the height and density permissions for the original mixed-use corridor. That's total understand. And I'm pleased to see that there will be a series of study on planning consultation, on transportation, on water and wastewater management to ensure enough infrastructure is in place to support the city's capacity along the regional mixed-use corridor. And I hope all these efforts will align with the provincial requirements and York Regional's official plan amendment, while also considering the well-being of the existing neighbors living nearby. This is my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Councillor DePaula, Regional Councillor DePaula.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are dealing with 11.2. We would normally delegations and then go in order, but okay, if we're on 11.2, the request is for direction from the committee here. And I would like to move the motion that the Sheridan Parkway Hotel lands be exempted from our from the completion of our comprehensive official plan process and the secondary plan for this local center. I think the request is very reasonable. We're well into an application that's been submitted. There's a formal application that the hope was by this time would have actually been dealt with. I think we're almost at the stage where our staff would normally be ready to come to council. I do understand the reasons for the delay in the official plan process. I do understand the reasons, and most of them being provincial changes that are shifting and causing us to delay our official plan update process. But this is one property that's been caught up unnecessarily. As was said by the delegation here, the city is already aligned with what is being proposed in many ways, including this council already determining that the employment conversion was the right thing to do on this site. And that was upheld at the region of York, and in their municipal comprehensive review, the lands have been changed to mixed use to accommodate the application. Those decisions have been made, and it was said really well by the delegation. But the delay that would be caused if we don't make this decision is really onerous on this applicant, and it's only going to force a situation where they're going to have no choice but to deal adversarially with the city at the OLT. And I know that's not anyone's desire. The city, I'm sure, wants to work with this applicant, and I know the applicant has been very accommodating to this point and wants to work with the city. But being that they are ready and that these plans are to go ahead, I can't see how they would be able to wait 4 to 5 years to wait for a policy framework to be in place. And I think the site lends really well to being dealt with individually and on its own. And our staff is going to do a lot of work, and there will be time and a proper policy in place. But we have to recognize that the city of Markham has already allowed 40 stories on the south side of Highway 7. This fits our vision for the local center. The submission that's been made is in line with what's intended on Highway 7. So for many reasons, I think we should exempt this parcel of land from our comprehensive policy and deal with this application because, as was said, we're talking about 3,700 units that can be built within the time frame of the pressure that's upon us by the province to deliver units. And this is where we determine that there be growth. We need to hit those provincial targets. This is an employment area and mixed use area that can be moved along. And with a willing applicant, I think the city should do its part to help to get this project underway. There's so many advantages and so many merits to the project. I'm not speaking to that. We will get to that at a later date, but it's just because of the readiness of the applicant. I think they should be exempted from the broader policy framework so that our staff can do the work and consider the transportation, the engineering, the environmental, and all the implications of the application and deal directly with this application, because we're actually almost there, and I'm certain that this applicant wants to get underway as soon as possible, and it's something that's needed and welcome for us here in Richmond Hill. So thank you.
Thank you, Regional Councillor DePaula. I'm going to just turn to the city clerk for a second here, because I believe that Councillor Hsu made the motion to start, and if you could just give us some clarification here.
Thank you. Through the chair, from my understanding, Regional Local Councillor DePaula, you would like to move then a motion to amend the main motion, which I do have on the screen. Or I will
Yeah,
put
I'd
on
like
the
to
screen.
see it on the screen. I thought.
This is so. Just to be clear, so Councillor Hsu moved the main motion, and then I understand that you would like to add a clause. So I've added it here as a G. You can just confirm that, and then
Right.
at this time,
Okay, so his motion is essentially, I don't think it's contrary. It was up to the chair to rule, but that's exactly the wording I was looking for. It can go as an amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no amendment here. Okay, next on the speakers list is Mayor West. Oh, sorry, go ahead, City Clerk.
To the chair, just for council's consideration. So at this time, as Regional Local Councillor DePaula has moved a motion to amend, which is on the screen at this time, every councillor has.
Sorry, I still saw Councillor Hsu, so I thought that was his. So, okay, sorry, I do see that amendment. Okay, so now we're moving to amendment.
And every councillor has one
Got it.
term to speak for 5 minutes before going back to the main motion.
Okay, so amendment moved by Regional Councillor DePaula. I think the first person that I got to speak to that was actually Councillor Tree.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I have a question regarding to this motion, actually, same as before. So this is a question is for our staff. So if the new OPA maybe approved or maybe not approved for a few years later. During that time being, is that applicant still can submit their proposals to city for review? Or they have to wait until the OPA fully approved, then can submit their own application?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the applicant actually has an application before the city that's being processed. But even if they didn't, nothing would prevent them from submitting an application during that OP review or update that is going forward.
So my next question is, then what is purpose of this motion here? We have to exempt. Is that benefits if they exempt for the OPA? No, it does not block them to submit whatever they have right now, right?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
So from my understandings here, I think this one is additional. I don't think see any values. If the applicants want to do any applications or go to OLT, this is their choice, right? So this one, I don't see any value here. So I'm not going to support this G here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the speakers list, Mayor West.
Okay. This is a tough one because there's definitely multiple sides to the story. I actually understand what both delegates are saying today. The reality is that this area and frankly, the rest of Highway 7 is going to see significant density. And some of that density won't even be on our side. It'll be on the Markham side, but it'll create a situation where if we don't allow a reasonable amount, and reasonable is to be determined, amount of density on these lands that are in question here, we're going to get slaughtered at the OLT at some point in time. It may not happen right away, but it will happen. If you've got 40 and 50 stories on the Markham side and you have no allowance for that type of thing on our side on a piece of land like this, that's not going to fly. So I understand the concerns that the residents have. I mean, I was at that meeting and I've certainly reached out and spoken to them on a number of occasions. And there are definitely some points that need to be considered in what is being said from the residents. But at the end of the day, the lands that we have here, and given the policy framework that we have from the provincial government, will eventually be developed with something that's significantly more dense than what we were used to seeing a number of years ago when the condos that are there were built. This is a complex issue, and ultimately my thinking at this moment is that I think it might be best for council to spend the next week between now and council considering this and having some fairly in-depth conversations with staff, because frankly, there's a lot more to this story that I know than I'm thinking maybe some other members of council have had the opportunity to really delve into this with staff. But can I just ask at this point in time to get the ball rolling, first of all, where is this applicant at with regard to the applicant's ability to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal at this moment in time?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, they could appeal at any time.
Okay, so that's the gun that we're under, right? I mean, if we say no to this, there is the danger that will happen. And then once that happens, it's completely out of our hands. As we all know on council, it will be up to somebody else to make the decision for us. What is if we did defer this, or if we took them out of the comprehensive update that we're planning on doing, what would be the potential implications of that for us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to refer that question to Director Flores, because she can answer the question directly with respect to the OP update work plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair. If those lands were removed, obviously, as you know, there is an application in place, so we would continue to meet with the applicant and the stakeholders through the normal development process, which would happen concurrently at the same time as the OP update. There are considerable resource implications. We are at capacity right now, as detailed in the staff report, due to provincial legislation and the ROP consolidation and amongst other things. It could potentially delay some of the OP update work that we are doing. And I couldn't guarantee that we have the resources available to do the proper sensitivity analysis as well in a more comprehensive manner. So it would be limited to the site. Again, I can't really comment on all the details without knowing the full extent, the boundaries and the timing, but there would be impacts. It's not that it's impossible, but it would cause some concerns in terms of the work plan.
Okay, and just to be clear, part of, I think what I'm hearing you say is that the comprehensive analysis that would be done will be more than just the lands at the Sheridan. There'll also be the lands around it to determine where the limits of that zone would be. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. One of the things that we're doing through the conformity update is taking a relook at some of the portions on the regional corridors at Yonge Street and Highway 7. And that does include the section along the East Beaver Creek corridor or lands. There are a number of other policies in play because of the Planning Act changes with employment land. So we are also looking at redesignating some of those areas potentially. And so we are looking at sensitivity analysis along there even before looking at the more comprehensive approach. But yes, through the secondary plan that was proposed, we would be taking a broader look at the area and the needs of the residents and the community.
Okay. And also just to add, to be clear, the part of the problem with our resources right now is the chaos that's been created for the last couple of years with Bill 23 and all the other bills and stuff and reversals and so on that the provincial government has thrown at us. Can this application move forward to fruition at the same time that we're doing this review? And that's just to clarify what Councillor Hsu is saying, because it's my understanding that it can move down the pipeline, but it can't come out the end of the pipe because we haven't finished the comprehensive review. Am I correct on that?
The application can move forward, but depending on what is proposed, again, I can't comment on what the outcome will be, but if it isn't in conformity with our OP and our policies, then there is some concern there because we haven't done the analysis and studies for it. So obviously, and this has been done before. We've made amendments to the OP on a site-specific basis. So again, it's possible to move forward. But again, without the application in front of me and knowing all the details, I can't comment for sure on what the outcome would be.
Okay. I don't want to cut off discussion because this is why we have committee of the whole. And this is a perfect example of why this is an important meeting. But I would like at some point I think what we need to do as council is to spend the week making appointments with our planning staff and asking the questions that come out of this meeting and that we would have already to determine what we will do when, ultimately a decision like this would get finalized at council the following week. So I'll leave it that. I don't want to move this. Actually, I could move a motion to defer and not cut off the conversation, right? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you through the chair. That's correct. A motion to defer is possible at this point in time.
Okay. I'm going to move the motion to defer. But I think we need to ask the questions that we need to ask right now. And I think we need to also follow up on the answers that we've received and any other further questions that we have between now and then. But just to be clear, I think that there needs to be a way forward here. And the way forward is not going to be served well by any of the extremes in this situation. We can't be saying no to an application like this because it'll go to the OLT and the outcome I can pretty much guarantee isn't going to be what the people living in the condos want. So that if at all possible, I think that needs to be avoided. But on the other hand, I think the people that live in this area need to understand that ultimately there's going to be development in this area. And we want it always to be great development, but the development has to be such that it's something that's reasonable and it conforms with provincial policy. And that's the part that I think we're trying to all pull on the same rope to get to, like every single one of us. So anyway, that would be my motion. I'm sorry I'm over time.
Thank you. So we now have a deferral motion on the floor. Who would like to speak to the deferral? Regional Councillor Chan.
I'm so confused. Not gonna vote Joe's motion, now we're gonna vote not the
Yes.
motion.
Yes, but it's all
Correct.
wrapped up.
So
So for clarity, we're now, so the amendment motion of Regional Councillor DePaula is now, there's a new motion that's come forward, which is a deferral. And that was moved by Councillor West. The first person I have to speak to the deferral is Councillor Chan. Carol Davidson next.
Thank you. I was prepared to actually move the same motion Mayor West just moved, because the first time I hear about the exemption request from the delegate today, and today is only a committee level. I am not in position now to go back to seek clarification about the merits, not the merits, but from a procedural standpoint. Maybe we have to determine next week is whether the amendment is any way in terms of the, I'm not questioning about spirit, but in terms of actually may be interpreted or considered as not consistent with the staff recommendation, because it's carving out before council even have a chance to decide whether we're proceeding or not. So in my view, I have trouble with that. But now we are not discussing about amendment. But on the referral, I support for the reason I have unclarified situation in terms of understanding whether in fact the particular amendment as moved was actually one comply or in the same spirit of the other recommendation. The other one, Mayor West pointed out rightly, that is it really necessary for amendment because of the applicant is already, based on the planning staff are saying, in a position to appeal to Ontario Land Tribunal, which means take the authority or jurisdiction of deciding on their application in the Land Tribunal, but not in Richmond Hill. So anyway, for those reasons, I support the motion to defer. And I think Mayor West made a very fine suggestion. Each one of us on council would take the time to speak to relevant parties to see what could reasonably be accommodated between now and next Wednesday. Thank you. I support it.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the speakers list is Councillor Davidson.
thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I feel like I need more information as well, but I would like to ask staff, has the city ever exempted one particular project from any of the planning?
Through the chair, a specific application or site does not come to mind, but yes, we've done that in the past. The areas have been exempted through various processes, yes.
And through you, Mr. Chair, is there something about this review that will make it less likely that the applicant can go through with the plans that they have? I have to admit, I'm not completely versed on this project unless it's in front of us, but what is it that is looming that is scary about not having, why does this need to be extracted in terms of the flow of the work to get it done, to let them put shovels in the ground? If you understand what I mean.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I understand the question correctly, it's not a matter of what is looming. It's just, it's the timing of the applicant who wants to proceed before the secondary plan is completed. The issue and concern for staff is we brought forward what I feel is a responsible program to get the OP update done in the secondary plans. And now there's a proposal to extract that area, which will not be in keeping with the work plan. So I can't speak for the applicant and their timing, but certainly we brought forward a work program to council for consideration, and extracting that will change the work program.
For you, Mr. Chair, thank you. It's my understanding that the city has a good working relationship with this applicant, and I guess I'm wondering, does that mean all building stops until the official plans are all dotted in the reviews? Like, why can't the work continue while this goes on. And if everything is, all the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted, that it goes on before the official plan is all put together.
Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we are working cooperatively with the applicant. We've had what I consider some good meetings and dialogue with them on their proposal. However, in order to complete the OP update work, as I said, we brought forward a responsible program to do that. Their application processing doesn't stop. It's just that we are looking to come up with a comprehensive secondary plan for the area and then bring their proposal forward. They want to proceed right now or in an accelerated timeframe, and that's where the issue lies.
Forgive me, through you, Mr. Chair, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but if ROP is not in place before the applicant gets all their side done, why would that hang them up? If they get the work done and the OP and secondary review and all the other stuff's not quite done on our end, I'm still not clear. Like, they have to work with the rules we have now, not with the rules we're hoping to get. So why would this in any way be a problem if they can get all their stuff their end done?
Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I can refer the question to Director Flores in terms of how this would affect, again, the OP update.
Director.
Through the chair, the proposal that is in now, it does exceed the current permissions in our OP. So we would be evaluating it based on that. And at this point in time, again, I may defer to Director of Development Planning, who's been involved in those discussions. There is still considerable studies and infrastructure analysis work that would have to be done in conjunction with that. So our proposal to look at it through a more comprehensive manner through the secondary plan approach would take into those considerations for the site, but also the broader lands around it, including other amenities such as parks and the street network that would be impacting the community at large. So that is one of the main reasons we had preferred to propose a secondary plan approach. Again, that doesn't preclude the applicant proceeding with their application, but under the current policies, there would be a little bit more work to be done. I'm not sure if I'll defer to Director Janetta.
Just through the chair to Councillor Davidson and further to Director Flores, there's a lot of work that needs to be done even when you extract the property from the secondary plan. So notwithstanding you extract them, the work still has to be done. So the analysis of the transportation plan, the analysis of the servicing and infrastructure work, that all needs to be done to make sure that whatever we do on this site doesn't prejudice the surrounding work that we were trying to accomplish through the secondary plan. So the work has to be done. There will be a direct deflection of resources to address that work that has to be done by exempting the property from the secondary plan area. So we're trying to coordinate that effort so that the applicant also doesn't have to front end some of these works on their own as well. So it really is trying to coordinate the two processes. It doesn't stop them. It doesn't stop the applicant from appealing to the OLT. And that also puts us in a situation that forces the city to respond to that application. What was really interesting about this application is that unfortunately, it does significantly depart from the current policy regime. So it proposes KDA heights and densities that are not contemplated for this area, which is why we wanted to make sure that whatever policies we bring forward is consistent with the overarching policy work that we're doing as part of the OP update.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with Mayor West, and I would like to see this give us more time to talk to staff, but I still am perplexed as to me, whether we extract it or not, the issues of height and density are going to be dealt with by the city, either within the current OP or the future OP or taking it out of the OP. So I'm not really sure what all this maneuvering and naming, whether it's in or out or whatever, they're asking for more height than the city allows for. Unless we're going to start hearing that, this new OP for this area should be, I'll just say 55 stories. I don't really know what the heights are that are being requested. I honestly don't see the need to extract it because the work will continue either way. And they can go to the OP, they can go to the Ontario Land Tribunal anytime and say, we want more. So I definitely need more time. I'm just confused as to why which plan it is will make any difference on what they want to build and what the process is going to be. So those are my comments. I support the deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think everybody's is very confused here. Not only the public, I think, staff also. I would like to quote Mr. Chair's famous line, we're all clear as mud here. So as much as I appreciate Mayor's deferral motion, but with all due respect, I would like to, through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk. So a motion to defer is we only allowed to talk about the time and place. I think the motion to refer that we allow a conversation to continue. Through you, Mr. Chair, am I correct?
I think you're through the chair. So a motion to defer, and I'll just read what's in here, may be debated as to the advisability of the postponement or the date and time to which the matter is proposed to be deferred. If it was to be referred back to staff, that implicitly would assume that staff would come back with something new. Whereas in this case, my understanding is Mayor West has moved a deferral so that council will have time to speak with staff individually to get a better understanding of what the amendment and I would say the staff report as a whole would mean for the particular property.
Thank you. So definitely, I think, we need to talk to staff and have more understanding of what's really going on with the motion to exempt. But my understanding, my expectation is instead of us going one-on-one to staff, if it's a referral motion, then staff can come back with a memo or an analysis or a report on the implication of the exemption. So, instead of 9 appointments, also with the public, the applicants, why don't we do it all at once? And then we have a better understanding. The public, I think, is more transparent on what we actually discuss with staff. So I would rather see a motion to refer to staff and then come back next week with more information so that the public can have more understanding on this one.
Thank you. I'm going to have to turn to the city clerk for assistance here.
Thank you. Through the chair. So under section 5.6.5, in terms of permitted motions, a motion to defer takes precedence over a motion to refer. So at this point in time, a motion to refer would not be in order.
Okay, thank you. You have any more comments?
Go ahead.
Second round?
No. I just want to see if I could.
I do have 2 more people on the speakers list. Would you like me to go to them or?
If I may, can I just, I would have done a motion to refer because I agree with Councillor Liu, except that procedurally, we only can talk about the appropriateness of time and place if we do a motion to refer. Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair. So a motion to refer may also include the terms on which the motion is being referred. It can talk as well about time and place, but whatever other explanation may be necessary as to the purpose of the motion.
Okay.
So you could talk about anything.
Okay. Well, as a compromise, because I do agree. I mean, I think in addition to the individual conversations, and I think we all need to have the conversations as well, but in addition to the conversations, would it be appropriate or would staff be able to supply us with a memo, for the council meeting next week, talking about some of the issues that were being brought up here today? Because I think that would be helpful, and then it would also be a public document.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, that is doable.
Okay. Well, I'm satisfied if you are, Councillor, if that's the situation.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So clerk can advise, withdraw this motion and make a referral motion, or how do we proceed with this?
We're going to get it. Start.
Even with a deferral motion?
Yeah. Right.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Liu. So as I understand it, the commissioner will be providing a memo to council, then that would go on to next week's agenda. Therefore, it'll be a public document.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, so carrying on with the deferral motion, next on the speakers list, Regional Councillor DePaula.
Thank you. With regards to the advisability of talking about this next week, I don't think that that's going to change anything. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is that we get to the right place. There's a lot of planning jargon being explained, and there's our staff will continue to very carefully elucidate their situation and their predicament with, but in plain language, what's happening here is, our staff will continue to tell this applicant that they have to wait for the secondary plan for their application to be processed. And I fully appreciate all of our staff's quandary with limited resources and their concern with going ahead. But the site that's currently being applied for already forms a good half of the local center that works that's going to be done. Once this work is done, it's removing a big load from our staff in the future, and it's a matter of just prioritizing. Now, this is a decision that council makes. This is when we intervene with the advice we've been given and say this is a priority. We have an opportunity to say it's a priority for us, for the planning staff to use their resources to examine this local center first, or the specific lands that have already under application, and the exemption gives our staff that opportunity. They can go in and look at this application, develop a tertiary plan based on all the new information that we're talking about today. Because otherwise they have to go, well, based on 2010, what our official plan says, they got to recommend to council not to approve this project. They have to say it deviates way too far from what was envisioned in 2010 in our current official plan on the table. But this council needs to give direction for our staff to do the work of the local center, in advance of all of the other secondary plans, which is fine. Just start with this one. Put the priority on this. If additional staff resources are necessary, come to us with what's required. And if we have to budget for additional staff, but is this something we want or not? That's what we have to decide, and we've got 1 week to do so. Because I want to make it clear, it's either the applicant will proceed at the OLT, we will have no say on how the lands are developed on this 5 hectares that we're situated on right now, or we will empower our staff to go ahead with this application, because waiting over 5 years is not an option, and waiting is Richmond Hill not putting its best foot forward in terms of an economic development opportunity that we have here. We're talking about a world-class conference center. This is a very, very unique case, and it's a case in which council can make an exemption and can help our staff to get this project dealt with and an opinion in front of us. And that's up to council to decide that this is a priority, that is significant enough. And we know what's in the pipeline for all the other applications, and for the most part, all of the other secondary plans and centers that are going to be passed during this official plan update that was originally supposed to be finished by the spring. It's going to take another 3 years. There isn't a lot of requests for exemptions that are going to come forward. This is a very unique case that's very advanced in the application stage, and it's my opinion that the right thing to do for Richmond Hill is to to get our staff to work and do the work of dealing with this application in light of all the new policy framework that's already been discussed and agreed upon. And it is a lot of work, but it's a lot of work that needs to be done, either prioritized now to the beginning of this official plan process, or it's planned to be done 2 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Councillor Hsu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to first to clarify the differences between the defer or refer. So what we mean here, if we go for the motion to defer, that means there's nothing is amended in the staff report, and just come back next week to discuss the same report, but there's nothing changed within the report, right? And we can just talk to the staff offline to know more about the exemption or not exemption. That's my understanding. If we go to refer back to the staff, that means that the staff have to amend the report, maybe put a memo to show the differences between exemption or not exemption. And it will be more transparent to the public. That's the difference to refer and defer. Based on my understanding.
Are you asking a question?
Yes, I'm asking a question.
Councillor Deputy.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Hsu. So you are correct. However, the commissioner has stated that the staff will be bringing forward a memo for next week's council agenda, which will discuss what has been discussed here today.
Okay, but the point is, next week will be the first time the public and the council first see about the amended report. And maybe we have some more time to digest or study the amendment or the memo.
Thank you. That would be correct. There is no amended staff report that will be coming forward. It will be the same staff report that will come forward to next week with the motion to defer. However, in addition will be a memo from the commission regarding what has been discussed today. So there will be something that will be going on to next week's agenda to, I guess, provide more information to what has been discussed today at this meeting regarding this agenda item.
So that means whatever, if we just go for defer or refer, we'll make the decision next week, most likely. If there's will be no any defer or refer next week. So the decision to exempt or not will be made up next week. Am I correct?
Through the chair to the councillor, that it would be up to council. I mean, a motion to defer could essentially continue on in perpetuity. I can't speak to what council will do to next week's meeting.
Okay, so if you come back next week to make up our mind to make a decision, so is it the decision to accept this report or the proposed motion raised by Regional Councillor Joe DePaulo?
Through the chair to the councillor. So what will come up on next week's agenda will be the motion to amend. That would be the first thing, because that is the item that is sort of the motion that sort of was last done prior to the motion to defer. And then subsequently, whatever the main motion, whether it's amended or revert back to the original motion would be. Understood now.
Okay. What I want to make my last comment is what we are talking about here is about timing. There's only two, exempt or not, if we make the exemption, there's only 2 years differences, now or 2 years later. But I insist to, and also respect the staff report to make, and I would say it is necessary to make a comprehensive studies before making this land, including this subject land into the official plan is necessary, because we have to do a comprehensive study on transportation, on water, on infrastructure, on planning consultation is necessary, because what we are going here is to make this parcel of land as a secondary plan. If we exempt it, that would be meaningless. And what we are doing here is to consider this subject land to be fair to everybody using the Highway 7, not only our city, but also work with the York Regional government and also City of Markham to make sure that the Highway 7 have enough infrastructure and the transportation infrastructure to accommodate the future development. So what we are doing here is to make fair to all residents living nearby and also the all commuters in the future. So I insist and I support the staff report, even we defer or refer back to the staff, a comprehensive study is necessary. And I urge all my council colleagues to think twice, because we're just talking about 2 years. We are not suspend this development. We are just talking about to make it fair and make it all clear and make sure that we have enough infrastructure and on this development. That's my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Excuse me, that exhausts the speakers list unless Mayor West would like to wrap. No. In this particular case, then I need to ask for those in favor, show of hands. That seems to carry unanimously. Okay. So the motion to defer is carried unanimously. Next agenda item is 11.1, which was pulled by Councillor Hsu. Councillor Hsu, go ahead. Will you be making a motion? No. Councillor Hsu.
So now is the time for item 11.1, right?
11.1, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that the city is applying for this funding, especially at the time when we are badly need resources for recreational facilities. But I'm wondering why the city chose these two projects for funding, given that some of our other projects, such as North Leslie Community Center, Town Park, and DDO Park, are currently facing budget shortfalls. So I just want to ask the reason behind, the rationale behind why we choose these two projects to be funded. Through the chair.
Happy to address that.
And
Whenever there is a new grant intake, in this case and in any case, the Strategy and Government Relations team does an analysis of the requirements of the fund. And that includes everything from what outcome the funder is looking to achieve, to what specific elements of a project are eligible for grant funding, to the timing that the project has to be delivered in order to receive the funding. So you're correct, there are a number of capital projects that the city has. What we did in this particular case, again, as we do all the time, is take that analysis, meet with staff who deliver projects that fit that category, those categories, and have a discussion about what the best fit is. And so in this particular case, based on the criteria I mentioned, we landed on these two projects because they best fit what the funder, the provincial government, is looking to fund. Does that answer your question?
Okay, understood. Through the chair, my next question is, we are now applying for nearly $200,000 for stream 1 and nearly $1 million for stream 2. So do you know what the criteria for the provincial government uses to approve your application?
I don't have everything in front of me, but it's basically, as I said, what they're looking to do is to fund in the two categories, new builds or renewal, within a certain time frame and for specific infrastructure. In this case, it is community sport and recreation infrastructure. Obviously, when we decide what to apply for, we look for any indications of what the matrix for the decision would be at that level. We also talk to the staff who are in the funding department for the province to get their feeling about what would be a good fit. We don't have access to what their final decision is and how they make that final decision because they are the funder. They decide how to approve their funding, especially in cases like this, where they have a $200 million bucket of funding, and I expect that they will get many more applications than they can support. So based on the criteria that they have set out in the guidelines, these two projects meet it well, and I'm confident that they're our best bet. In the end, how they will decide is up to them.
So is it an all or nothing situation, or can the province approve only a portion of the request amount?
They can do whatever they wish. This is an indication of what they intend to do, which is 50% of the eligible costs of a project. But it's up to them if they want to change midstream. I don't know if they will. Generally, funders don't. They just fund up to a certain amount based on the available funding they have.
Through the chair, my last question is just to clarify if these two projects are mandatory. That means if the provincial government approves our application, does that mean we have to allocate $1.2 million for these two projects? If the application fails, we need to allocate $2.4 million in our upcoming capital budget planning for these two projects. Am I correct in my understanding?
Maybe I'll start with that and then I'll defer to the treasurer as required. The projects that we look to fund when we go out and talk to staff about what might be a good fit are projects that are already on the plan to be delivered. We already have an idea about what's coming over the next number of years, so we're not inventing something new. My understanding is that what this recommendation will do is allow us to move forward with the application, the city committing the remaining funding if we're successful with the grant. If we are unsuccessful, then it would continue through the regular capital process. I don't know if Gigi has anything to add.
Just through the chair, if I may just add, these projects are already in our 10-year capital plan. So for example, the first one, it's already, slated for construction in 2025. So it's in our plan for 2025. And the second one is slated for construction in 2026. So if we do receive grant funding, we'll simply replace the city funded portion in 25 with the grant dollars. And then if not, we'll still proceed as if we're using our own funding. So in 26, same situation or same scenario, we would replace the grant funding with what we would otherwise use from our own sources.
Okay, understood now. Thank you for.
Okay, just to confirm, you are moving the motion? Okay, anybody else? Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate my colleagues wondering about these two projects are in Oak Ridges, but I do want to thank staff for showing Oak Ridges some love because I'll tell you, Brickworks Park is 25 years old. My understanding is that it is beyond its end of life or whatever. And it is so well used. It's at the top of a school backyard, and there are literally shifts at that park every single day as classes rotate through there. There's seniors that use that park every evening in the summer to meet. There's the exercises go on up there, so I think it's money well spent for the community. The other one is the splash pad at Lake Wilcox Park, which if ever there was a spot that is used, it's that. I do have a question though. I feel like, through you, Mr. Chair, that splash pad isn't that old. Why are we replacing anything on it yet? What's the lifespan of foamy bottom for splash pads? If anyone knows about that.
Okay, through the chair to Commissioner having a brain fart. There we go. Massaro.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Davidson. Don't have the specific information on hand. There's most likely various elements of the splash pad, maybe not necessarily the entire splash pad itself that reach its end of life. And you're right. Perhaps as a result of the amount of use that it gets warrants, the interventions, the financial interventions to improve the asset so it can continue to be an effective, amenity for the community.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't think to tell staff how to do their job, but if we need the heavy duty, extra expensive, in the long run, cheaper splash pad stuff, I assume that will be considered. What's durable, I'm sure all that is part of your assessment.
It's absolutely through the chair to Councillor Davidson. Yes, it is part of the assessment, and what I'm being told and updated by staff that it is a repair for portions of the splash pad itself. So anytime that we can receive funding and match potential grants with the needs that we have, it's a positive for the municipality and offsets our capital costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Next on the list is item 11.3. Again, I believe this was pulled by Councillor Shu, the authorization to execute development agreement with Monchon Foundation. Go ahead, Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the staff report, and welcome to Monchon for establishing the second long-term care and rental apartment in our city. And I'm excited to see that this one will be a big project. So my question is, do you know how many phases this project has and the timeline for each phase?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll refer the question to Director Gianetta.
Director?
Had to do a bio break. My apologies. Can you repeat your question?
Oh, just want to know that how many phases in the for this project and the timeline for each phase.
So there's two phases, through the chair to Councillor Shu. There's two phases. The current applications in front of us are for a 10-story long-term care facility, as well as a 38-story seniors rental apartment building. The remainder of the site will be developed at a future stage, and they haven't given us the timelines for that remaining phase. The anticipation is that the long-term care facility is to be constructed the start of construction this year, with the construction of the 38-story seniors rental apartment building next year in accordance with ministry funding requirements.
Okay, understood. I have one more question regarding to the map 3 in the staff report. Map 3, I noticed there appears to be another land use on the west side of the subject land. And yeah, and the caption there are two captions I want to clarify. One is a multiple residential 1 exception and multiple residential 4 exception. What does that mean?
So through the EMZO that was established on the subject lands, the lands to the immediate north, the RM4 lands, are the existing applications that we have currently with the city for townhouse development. So to the immediate north of the block 5 that we have in front of us, there is, we're, I think, actually close to site plan approval for townhouses, which are permitted use in RM4.
Can I also know about the timeline for that 2 pieces of land?
The RM4 zone category are currently finalizing their site plan approval, so they expect to be in the ground this year, is based on what the developer has advised the city staff.
Okay, that's all about my question. Thank you, Chair.
And I just want to confirm that you're actually moving that motion. Okay, thank you. Next on my speakers list is Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As long as this is pulled, I'm going to ask some questions. Thank you, staff, for the report. So this is the EMZO, right? And what can we control with the EMZO in terms of height and density?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, all the heights and densities have been established already in the MZO that was put forward by the province. That was made very clear. We did work cooperatively with them on the proposal that was in front of us, and they established the zoning bylaw. What is different here and what's before council, the reason we're before council is there really is no site plan control under section 41. It's under another section in the Planning Act. It's very similar in terms of things we can control, but there's no delegated authority, and that's why we're in front of council today to ask for that.
Thank you. the other question I have is the bridge already guaranteed? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, contemplation for all the infrastructure in the area was part of the planning for the area. There are certain triggers that would enable, or not enable, but would demand that that bridge be put in place. Right now, with the development that's in front of the city, the bridge is not triggered at this time. There is a lot more higher density that's being proposed to the north end of the site near Major Mackenzie. And my understanding is when that comes forward, that will likely be the trigger to put in place that infrastructure.
Thank you. I heard before that, through you, Mr. Chair, the tower will be on Major Mac. So now they move it down to close to the long-term care center. Am I correct? Through you, Mr.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Actually, there are two different sets of development. The buildings that are to go towards the north end of the site at Major Mackenzie, those are not part of the long-term care Amanshang project. So there will be towers eventually on Major Mackenzie
okay.
and this separate site.
Okay. Going back to the proposal, so 38 stories, there will be 6 stories above grade parking. So is that 6 stories included in that 38? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that is my understanding. They're included in that total height.
Thank you. And I see that there are 288 long-term care beds, and for the senior rental units, is are like 348. But I see 907 parking spaces allocated. Is there a specific reason for that, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll defer the question to Director Gianetta.
Sure.
Thanks. Through the chair to Councillor Liu, the applicant has proposed the minimum parking requirements as per the EMZO that was issued. And they actually came back to the city and requested reduced parking rates for this EMZO to satisfy this block of development, and staff were satisfied. So the parking that they are proposing meets the EMZO requirements.
Thank you. So, I mean, there are more parking spaces than units.
Through the chair, that's correct. And they've proposed that. The city has not required that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on the speakers list is Councillor Tree.
Great, thank you so much. I only have 2 questions here. The first one is for the car traffic. So, as I know, I drive along the Major Mac in the morning. So townhouse will be built up very soon. I think it's almost finished. If we build up another around 1,000 units, how about the traffic along the Young Street, especially Major Mac, especially go to the Highway 404? How the projections here for the traffic?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the MZO was put on the municipality. There was limited discussion with respect to the region would be in charge of the traffic operations on that portion of Major Mackenzie Drive. So I really can't speak to the outcome of that, but obviously there's potential transit there in the future. We're right near an interchange with Highway 404 and Major Mackenzie. So that was taken into some consideration by the province. We did bring that up as an issue to them.
Okay, maybe the next question will be similar. The one is for noises, because the building will be very close to 404. I'm assuming at nighttime or in the early morning, very noisy. That's going to be impact their house for seniors. Maybe it's also city's hand. Just curiosity.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the land's back onto the Highway 404, as I noted, and obviously MTO permits will be required. So noise issues will be taken into account, and they will have to incorporate some design features to address the noise.
Okay, for the angular plan perspective, this is the 38 floors. Behind it is our townhouses. Really, is that going to be our city's requirement for the angular plan, or is out of our hand too?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's already been taken out of our hands. The zoning bylaw and basically the land uses were put in place.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That exhausts the speakers list. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Next is item 11.6. This was pulled by Councillor Tree. Will you be moving a motion?
I'm going to move the motion first, but I do have a few questions after.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor
Okay,
Tree.
thank you so much. I think I appreciate all the efforts regarding to this animal controls. And in the past 2 years, I received tons of complaints from residents regarding the animal services. The one animal service might know my name well. So I have dealing with a lot of dog issues, especially I see the dog biting issues. So my question here, the first one is, if the dog bites the people or any other domestic animals, how the city gonna track down the animals or the dogs, case by case or tags or whatever? How we track them?
Commissioner Steele.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm clear, you're asking if there is an incident of a dog bite, how do we figure out which dog did it?
That's right. How we track it in case if it occurred again.
Okay, so I might defer that to our expert of enforcement, but it is reported to Vaughan Animal Services and they initiate an investigation similar to any police or bylaw investigation, looking for evidence that they can find. And Don, do you want to add anything?
Through the chair to Councillor Tree, in addition to what Commissioner Steele said, the investigation would include contacting the complainant, contacting public health. It's done through both a licensing regime as well as the investigation component. They're tracked and then they're investigated accordingly.
So the dog is repeat offender this way, bite 2 persons or 2 people or 2 animals later on. So is there going to be a penalty for the owner, also the penalty for the dogs as well?
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, the penalties can range from a monetary fine to the dog owner, as well as there can be restrictions placed on the dog itself that did the biting. For example, a dangerous dog order that requires a muzzle or any other type of remedial requirements such as behavioral training. So there's fines and additional restrictions that can be placed on both the owner as well as the animal.
Okay, another one is for unleashed dogs. I have been report tons of them. So if we, I'm assuming in the future you do have a licensing for the dogs. So for the repeat offenders, for example, this neighbor report 1 for Monday, and then Tuesday it came out again for another report. So we do have the taggings or name to identify that dog. In that case, in the future, do you have any fine system here as well?
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, we have a current fine system, which is under the POA, the Provincial Offences Act. What staff are proposing is to move the fine system under the AMPS Act, so the Administrative Monetary Penalty Act. That's one of the recommendations.
Thank you so much. Okay. Also, I have another 2 questions regarding the number of cats and also number of dogs here as well. I see now the max is 6 dogs per 1 owner. So what is going to be new recommendation? 3 or 4? What's the maximum?
Through the chair to the councillor. So currently the maximum amount of dogs permitted in Richmond Hill is 4. The recommendation that we're putting forward based on benchmarking for other comparable municipalities would be reducing that to 3.
Okay. Okay, because I know we are reviewing this new bylaw now until December or November. So if any owners has more dogs, and I remember I see one cases there are more adopted dog, cats or dogs at their home. So is there any public hearings or any public notice going to send to those owners just in case? If they pass motion, they only have 2 or 3 weeks to prepare. They cannot send dogs away. There's going to be a problem. So any preparation for that, just in case?
Through you, Mr. Chair, as it's indicated in the bylaw that if you have more than the required number at the time of the passing bylaw, those animals can live out their life with you. You don't have to get rid of them.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, I think that's for me now. So I'll think about it, go around next round. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And I support to revise this bylaw because it's nearly 20 years that has not been reviewed. And I support the idea of a cat licensing and also and also limiting the maximum number of cats per household to 3. But enforcing this would be tricky because cats usually stay indoors. So my question is, through the chair, is how to execute the enforcement to limiting the maximum number of cats indoors.
Director.
Through the chair to the councillor, we would do a two-prong approach. One would be a complaint base. So any type of complaints that we would get, we would go out, we investigate, and we would take the appropriate action then. The other approach would be an educational approach. So we would do a communication sort of campaign across the board to the city, to residents, more public consultation, letting them know of the new rules, and then reassessing our approach at that point.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next on the list, Regional Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the recommendations here or motion in front of us also asking for comments. And here's a comment, and I want to really compliment staff for particular bylaws and other staff who work on this because this is long overdue. What got my attention is modernize, in particular because we're engaging next door neighbor, Vaughan Animal Bylaw, to really help with the enforcement that was raised. So there's no reason why we are not as much resembling to what they've been doing. Otherwise, I can foresee or envision how challenging for the Vaughan Animal Control Officer under one set of bylaw and then come to Richmond Hill and enforce somewhat different set of bylaw. Of course, there are different standards. I am particularly delighted to see that we are creating a new regulation for feeding, trapping, and hunting wildlife. And the director may know, in the past, when I was a local councillor, I got frequent complaints. I mean, the staff reports see here, 27% of complaints are relating to that. And it's a challenging situation because, you know, the animal wildlife will not wait for our staff to be able to capture. And quite often it's a bit difficult to get individual who might be out of the good heart to feed the wildlife to say, yeah, we did it. But it creates a lot of friction among neighbors. So I'm glad now at least we have something on the book. The challenges of how to enforce it still remain, but I'm glad we stated now it's in the books. The second one is that we actually have talked about, I believe in last term, is that even doing a pilot on having a background chicken at one time seems to be the thing to do. However, I support seeing that now proposing to add a prohibition of keeping chickens at the back. Most of the areas in Richmond are urbanized, and I take it this is not a particular just like to, but based on benchmarking, at least 3 of the 8, as I read it, of municipalities who do pilot choose not to continue. And there's all the good reasons why it's not supported. So I, for one, I support that. Both these are new features and based on my past experience, and I'm glad that we have that. So I'm in full support of that and looking forward to its implementation. But I think it's highlighted in the report, we need education because until people are aware of it, it makes it very challenging. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for me to add my comments.
Okay, thank you. Next, Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I have just 3 quick questions. One is people who dog sit or dog walk. I'll see one person that's, weighs 120 pounds walking 300 pounds of dog. And I always think like if there was some kind of a rowdy ruckus or something that those dogs would be out of control. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that if it was in here. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have put a 6-dog limit on dog walkers.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Proposed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is occasionally, through you, Mr. Chair, occasionally I get a question, somebody saying, oh, my neighbor has a pit bull. Can you clarify rules regarding pit bulls or pit bull mixes
Commissioner
in terms of permissibility in Richmond Hill?
or Director?
Through the chair to the councillor. So in regards to pit bulls and other restricted breeds, that's regulated through provincial legislation.
So through you, Mr. Chair, as it stands, you know what, we can take this offline. I would appreciate if you send me that list so that I know what to tell residents. Thank you. And my last one is, I know it's addressed here, but does anyone know how to control dog poop all over the neighborhood? It's great to say we don't want it, and I get lots of it, but seriously, has any municipality come up with great ideas? I don't know if it's little doggy bags at the edge of park entrances or more garbage cans, but is there a strategy that we could even consider throwing some money at to stop the pollution of dog poo all over the neighborhood? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that the answer to that is no. No one has actually figured out how to control that. We have done quite a bit of work with communications, trying to increase public awareness of the fact that it's not natural. It's actually contaminating our natural environment with the density of dogs that exist in urban areas. It's very bad for streams. It's bad for our natural areas. So I think some of the best examples out there are public awareness examples of things that can be done, but really it is a human behavior issue. And we all know that some of these things that are a result of human behavior are the most difficult things to change.
Thank you.
Okay, next on speakers list, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that dog poops has been mentioned. First of all, I'd like to thank bylaw staff for the great work you've been doing. Thank you so much for always responding. So I wanted to assure you that council is here to help. Whatever, you have anything that can help you enforce the bylaw, let us know. The majority of complaints I got is off-leash dog. And I'm just wondering, I know it's hard to enforce, but how can we raise the fines of off-leash dog? Do we do it here, or I need a motion, or any suggestion through you, Mr. Chair, to staff?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that the conversion of this bylaw to the administrative monetary penalty system rather than the POA system will be helpful in that regard. The administrative monetary penalty system does help as an educational tool more so than the sending someone to court to dispute a ticket that they get. So it also allows the enforcement officers to issue tickets somewhat more easily and more freely. But the problem with unlicensed dogs is actually catching that person and that person actually stopping for the officer and not just running away and then giving their name to actually be issued a ticket. So I'm not sure if the enforcement expert would like to add something else.
Please.
Through the chair, in addition to Commissioner Seal's comments, the off-leash dogs and the enforcement was something that we heard loud and clear while we were doing our public consultation and feedback from the public. That being said, I can confirm with council, in addition to consulting and conversing with Vaughan Animal Services on their buy-in for the bylaw, recently as in September of this year, we met with Vaughan Animal Services and had discussions about increasing enforcement, understanding that the needs and the complaints that we receive from the community, what we've heard from council members as well, is that they would like to see more physical presence of officers in park, some proactive enforcement. So we're in the initial talks of how we can increase officer presence right now, if that's helpful.
How much is the fine right now, through you, Mr. Chair, for off-leash dog?
Through the chair, the fine under the POA system is $200 plus victim surcharges, court surcharges, so around $235.
So it is more or less across the board in your region?
Give or take, it fluctuates. Sorry, through the chair, it fluctuates a little, but we're roughly around the same amount.
Through Mr. Chair, do you think, raising it to like $400 will help? I see shaking of heads. No.
And personally, I don't think the fine actually makes that huge amount of difference. Again, it's a behavior thing, and the extent to which the fine is used is pretty limited, like I said, because it's actually difficult to find that person, get their name, issue a ticket at the time. And I would also caution that for every complaint you receive about an off-leash dog, there's people out there that are, they really believe that they should be able to have their dogs off leash in some areas. So there's other things that we could do to help control that. Like the off leash dog parks have gone a long way to helping us reduce the amount of off leash dogs in other parks.
Yeah, so we either open more off-leash dog parks or, I think I'm glad to see that we might be able to generate some revenue from the cat license, like $50,000, and hopefully can invest back into more enforcement officers. And hopefully we can see some changes. To me, the majority of call I got is off-leash dogs, and I think we should be zero tolerance on that. So anyways, thank you so much.
Okay, that exhausts the speakers list. However, I would like to make a few comments myself as well on this item. One, I guess just want to make sure I got some clarification on what Councillor Hsu was on about ownership. And that is, when we talk about ownership, are we talking about household or individuals? So, we could have a household that has 3 individuals in it. Would that mean that they could have up to 12 dogs in there?
Through the chair, to Councillor Thompson, I would say both, but what we're dealing with, where the intention is per dwelling, if that makes sense. So per house. So
the intention is that it's dwelling, and I'm just not 100% sure that that's clear in the report as to what ownership means here. So I'll leave that with you. In terms of dog poop, I know there is a company that is piloting in, I think, Aurora, I think in 11 different parks. I think they're called Sutra. And they basically are collecting the dog waste below ground. So they actually come in and put particular things in, or the city can actually do it themselves. So a lot of the construction materials they use for this is standard. And I think I passed this information on before, but if not, I can pass it on again. I think it's worth at least looking at what Aurora has done and maybe see what their findings are. Because it seems that people are not going to carry their stuff home with them, so they're actually putting this right into the parks, and it's and I believe that there is some use for that poop afterwards when they take it out of those containers. They actually, whether it's some form of fertilization or fuel or what, I have no idea, but I believe they've discovered some use that can be used. The other thing I do want to make the comment is Commissioner Steele is bang on when she talks about communication is one of the things. And I've had, and I should have given you the good news back, but in one of my parks, we were having a real problem with dog poop. And I got Commissioner Steele to put some A-frame signs up at that park talking specifically about the fines that were there. I ended up getting a call 2 weeks later from the complainant who asked if we could get that. He says those signs are working immensely. It's improved so much. So kudos to that. I think it's something that we should be thinking about and moving forward with on a more regular basis. Those are my comments. We do have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. I believe that exhausts the items for discussion. And I got to remember where I am. Mr. Clerk, maybe you could just.
Thank you. To the chair, the member motion, item 12.1 is still.
Oh, correct. Right. And so the member motion, that's Regional Local Councillor DePaula. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I think the rest of council can see what I had published as a suggested member motion last week. I really wanted to just start this discussion, have this debate, but I went as far to propose a motion. And I'm willing to be flexible with regards to the ultimate wording of the motion, and particularly in light of staff's concerns and asking for a report back. I wouldn't be unreasonable in requesting a time frame if staff does need more time. But many of us were at the opening of the Jolt electric vehicle stations at Weldrick and Yonge Street, and it's an exciting sort of opportunity. And this company chose Richmond Hill as their very first location in all of Canada to implement these electric vehicle charging stations with a digital billboard. And they have an interesting proposal. They are suggesting, as they did with this private sector installation, that on public property they'd be willing to absorb all of the costs, to get a building permit, to absorb all the municipal costs related to that building permit, all the costs of erecting the structure, including the underground electricity, and provide a service to our residents with free electricity. So there's no cost and no real risk to the city. If we were to work with them, they're looking for places that they could lease from the city. They would lease our space, and that would be a revenue. I'm really looking at this as a budget chair as a revenue generating opportunity. There's so many people that want to put billboards all over Richmond Hill, and those mobile signs are so popular, but this is a tasteful compromise, I believe. I think these digital boards look great. I think our residents will be happy with the idea that they can get a free charge. They get a 10-minute charge, which apparently gets their car between 40 and 60 kilometers on an electric vehicle. And so there's a service being offered. There's a consideration of the environment. There's, being that it's supporting electric vehicles, which is something we want to encourage. And the tasteful manner in which they're erected, constructed, if we can dictate where they go and they're unobtrusive to the road network and the flow of traffic, I don't see any downside, and the revenue opportunity is great. And there's also a community messaging opportunity. We have in negotiating with this company, we could insist that at a certain portion of the time that the digital billboard is displaying messages, that it would be for the city's messages. So we could advertise our upcoming programs, registration coming in. I can see one of these billboards being at the entrances and exits to our community centers, and just the typical advertising and messaging that we do. I think if there are many locations across the city, that this would really help to be an effective communication tool. So my suggestion is that we authorize our staff to negotiate with this company. And my understanding is that they're the only providers of this particular service, that no one else has this type of thing. And in that case, we wouldn't be asking to go to tender. We would be directing our staff to negotiate with this company because they're the only ones who do this type of service. So my suggestion is that staff report back to council, to committee of the whole 2 weeks from now, on how that direction could unfold, that we're authorizing them permission to enter into an agreement with the company is called Jolt to install these electric vehicle charging billboards on city properties. So that's my hope and my suggestion, and I'm happy to hear from others and to hear from our staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For discussion, the first I have on list is Regional Councillor Deputy Mayor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, regional colleague DePaula moved the motion. I was also privileged to join Mayor West and a number of other my colleagues at the, I guess, opening, unveiling, whatever the right term is, of the first such kind of EV charging station, but it's Jolt company based in Australia. So I support the spirit, and for all the good reasons that that the mover has mentioned. Because I was there, I saw, and certainly the Jolt company make all the white pictures, so if I may say so. Having said that, there's a couple of things for Mr. Chair I just want to clarify. That we report back to October 16th, which meaning it's only 2 weeks from now. And I'm wondering whether, in fact, either mover is considered flexible or whether the staff may say, is that sufficient time? Given my understanding is you have a 2 weeks period for approval ahead of time. So through your chair is to staff, would October 16 create any particular concern, or if it's doable?
Commissioner Massaro.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Chen. It is a very aggressive timeframe to try to report back on how staff could potentially enter into such agreement. However, any information back would be identifying the risks in doing so.
Okay, so okay, thank you. The answer through Mr. Chair. So it seems to me that is aggressive, but somewhat doable. Because, well, it's up to the mover, whether in fact it could be a more flexible day or is there some magical reason why it has to be October 16. I'm just raising it. But the other thing too is that I hear the word risk both from the mover as well as from our staff. Of course, I'm sure that in addition to our staff here, the city solicitor would probably provide input when they come back to the committee of the whole, or city manager has something to say on that. But I don't need to know because we don't have the full report yet. But also, just for clarification from Mr. Chair, I don't know, so the Commissioner of Administration and Finance or city manager, if assuming that whenever it comes back, council would say, yeah, would that constitute like almost like sole sourcing through you, Mr. Chair?
Through the chair to Councillor Chan, yes, it would.
Okay, good. Well, maybe we don't need to decide now. We don't know yet. Staff are supposed to come back. Well, we deal with it then, but I'm just raising it now. Have we received any proposal from this company to the city that maybe the mover know about, but I don't know about it? But would staff help through Mr. Chair? Have we ever received any proposal from this company now that we unveil the first one in Canada, in your city? We'd like to do more, through Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chan, I'm not aware of having received anything. However, what I would like to everybody to keep an open mind, and this is a new technology, so we at this point don't even know what else is out there.
Thank you. Thank you for all the answers. Well, I'm not going to ask any more questions. I'm supporting this in spirit. It's certainly with that subject to staff come back on what the merits, other considerations, I would say, maybe include other things. We move it on then. But I'm support getting a report back if it's doable and see where we will go from here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I agree it's time to start looking at having charging stations at our public spaces. We've had a very small, not a fancy electric car since 2016. And as it gets older, we need more charges as we go along. But I would like to start by asking through you, Mr. Chair, staff, what's being done in terms of an overall EV strategy for the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson, thank you for the question. There is approved capital budget in 2024 to launch the city's electric vehicle strategy. The intent is to engage a consultant to initiate the strategy and be already reporting back. Staff is intending to report back the end of Q2 of 2025. And while, you know, the spirit of the motion is well intended, it's premature at this time to further to Commissioner's previous comments. There's a lot of opportunity to investigate whatever else might be out there in industry right now. Advancing this particular motion undermines due process, as well as there's the opportunity that this motion would conflict with our future strategy in order to, you know, really revealing what other insights and technological advancements might already be out there. So the intent of the strategy is to investigate not only one vendor, but any vendor and what the city's best approach is so it receives the best value for its approach moving forward.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So next year we would have a more wholesome report that considers all these issues. I have to say, having a car for 16 years and not being able to charge at public spaces in Richmond Hill hasn't been a problem. I would almost bet my life that anyone with an electric car in Richmond Hill has a charger in their garage, or they know where they charge. So I don't see the rush on this. And I also know, like, ChargePoint is the biggest network that I know of in Canada. In Canada, there's also Flow, which is a Canadian company. There's a lot of other companies providing chargers, and I don't favor one over the other, but I don't agree with single source. I think we should come up with a strategy, put it out there for proposal, and see who wants to bid and what's the best answer for the city and therefore the taxpayers. And the only analogy I have, which isn't a great one, but imagine, you know, it's 100 years ago and we're figuring out where to put gas pumps. Of course, we can't just pick one. We need to know what's out there and what we're going to get. And that's essentially what we're going to do here, is say, okay, you get to do this everywhere. We're not going to ask the ESSOs and the Suncors and all the other. So I don't think that works. Also, I'm concerned about the billboards. I looked it up, and these billboards are huge. Like, they're almost the size of the side of a bus stop. And the city will have no control over what's advertised. I feel like the city shouldn't be necessarily commercializing our parking lots and our libraries. So I just think there's a lot more here than just saying, yeah, let's get a place to plug in. And there's no rush, in my opinion. And I completely support Councillor DePaulo's idea of having chargers in public places. I think it's a great thing to add, but I don't see the rush, and I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too also agree with Councillor Davidson. I really like the spirit of this motion. However, I have, you know, a few concerns, and a thank to staff. You know, I rather wait for the strategy to come back and have a wholesome discussion on how we're going to go forward with EV chargers in our properties. I would rather support a motion to expedite the strategy instead of just authorizing staff to enter into an agreement with a single company. Interesting that Councillor Davidson mentioned about the sign. On a side question, so are those billboards comply to our sign bylaw? I know that we're not in favor of digital sign.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, right now they actually wouldn't be in compliance because our bylaw doesn't allow third-party advertising on signs.
Okay.
Director?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, Commissioner Steele is correct. Our bylaw doesn't allow third-party advertising. However, from my understanding, there was a site plan amendment done with this particular, the Jolt ones that we're speaking of, which allows for it. I don't have the details, but I'm just going by memory only. There was some sort of an amendment to allow for the current one. There was a minor variance. Sign variance, sorry.
Sign variance. Okay. So it's going to be setting a precedent for other signs to come. All right.
I would just note that the sign bylaw is on our list of bylaws to be reviewed, and the variance component is one of the things that we would be reviewing. Is that, I wouldn't say it sets a precedent. It's a unique case. It's the first one, and we would have to confer that. We're kind of confirm that that's what happened, but
yeah, if they are violating our bylaw now, I don't think we should support any right in front of us. And you know, to be honest with you, I have lots of people approach me asking about, you know, having digital signs, and I think it's time for us to review that our sign bylaws, maybe, you know, to allow some digital signs. I know there's another discussion, but once again, I appreciate the intent of this one, but I don't think this is the right time to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Anybody else would like to speak before we get to a wrap up? I have a few comments that I'd like to make before I turn it over for a wrap up. In regards to the actual motion, and perhaps staff can help me to make sure that I understand, you know, when we're talking about a strategy. So it says that the appropriate City of Richmond Hill staff worked back to the October 16th Committee of the Whole with a strategy on how Richmond Hill can enter into an agreement with Jolt to install electric vehicle charging billboards on city property at multiple locations. So when we have a focus that's narrowed right down to one particular vendor, does that mean that's what staff will only look at? Is that one particular vendor in this, in the recommendation here? Because it would seem to me, if we're looking at a strategy and we're talking about how we could enter into an agreement, but we specified one vendor, that's my concern. Commissioner?
I'll respond to the comments. I believe there's a question in there. The strategy as a whole aims to look at all the opportunities that are available within the industry. The motion as presented, and my interpretation is that it's directing staff to find a strategy to enter into an agreement with one vendor, which I believe is premature at this point without a competitive process. And it does undermine, to some extent, some fairness and transparency. And it could create the perception of undue influence potentially.
Right. Thank you. And that's my interpretation as well. And that's where I have a major concern here. I mean, quite frankly, I do like the innovative way that Jolt has brought their program forward. As a matter of fact, they will be attending as a sponsoring vendor at my Eco Family Fest this Saturday, which is October the 5th, and from noon till 5 at Town Park. Okay, I know, a shameless plug, but I thought I'd throw that in there. But yes, I do concern with the perception that we are looking at single source in that particular case. And I share some of the same concerns that Councillor Davidson has raised as well. So it's going to be difficult for me to support this motion as it's written. So those are my comments. Councillor DePaula for wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say I'm a little surprised with the council's reaction, but it's totally fine. I mean, my suggestion here was to operate completely outside of our EV strategy, our that charging station strategy would continue and all that work would continue, but just that we would investigate getting some of these billboards. I think our digital billboard bylaws is so restrictive in Richmond Hill. All our advertising bylaws are really restrictive, and we don't do as much or allow as much third-party commercial advertising as other municipalities, and that this might be a good way to venture into it and still have a very tasteful display and show our obvious concern for climate change and other things. So I thought this might be something that we could do. The request is merely to come back with a recommended strategy, and if the case is that there's other people that make this kind of digital billboard that's also an electric charging station, then certainly we would the recommendation would be an RFP process to get the best rate or the best contract with a provider. But my understanding is that there isn't anyone else who does this. So I thought it'd be a nice compromise without going all Vaughnish on our city and allowing billboards everywhere. But to have a tasteful way of generating some revenue while doing a good turn for our residents. So I'm going to support the motion as is. I didn't see any call for amendments, but I completely understand the arguments put forward by the rest of the council.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
A recorded vote. Go ahead, Deputy Clerk.
Thank you. Voting on the member motion 12.1, Councillor Davidson.
No.
Regional and local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
No.
Mayor West.
Not here.
Absent, my apologies. Councillor Tree.
Not in favor.
Councillor Shu.
No.
Councillor Silovitz is absent. Regional and local Councillor Chan. Councillor Liu.
No.
That motion fails to carry.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to on the agenda, I believe our next item is, are there any emergency or time sensitive? No? Oh, we go straight to that? Okay. Then who would like to make a wow. Regional and local councillor has moved to adjourn. Councillor Chan. All those in favor? That carries.